candidates are for the 142nd, and it's Lucy Dathan and Fred Wilms.
All right, same rules for this segment. 2-minute answers with—
And Mr. Flynn, excuse me, Jane, one more. Mr.
Yes.
Flynn, if you could turn off your video. Thank you very much.
Okay, are we good?
Yep, I think we're all
okay.
good.
2-minute answers to each question with a 30-second rebuttal or extension, and then 2-minute closings with no rebuttal. And the first question, by luck of the draw, goes to Mr. Wilms. And again, I'm going to start with the one about committees. What committee or committees would you plan to serve on if elected, and what would you like to accomplish in those roles? Mr. Wilms, your audio has just gone dead. Your video's okay, but we can't hear you. Okay.
Here we are.
Okay.
Well, hi, good evening, everyone. And I want to thank the League of Women Voters and also my opponent, Lucy, and all the other candidates that are here. It's an honor to be here for everyone. 3 committees that I would like to serve on. Well, the first that comes to mind, of course, is the Appropriations Committee. It's my strong finance background. I did serve on the Appropriations Committee for 4 years. And that committee is intimately involved with the state budget and finances. I really believe that one of the best things we can do to turn our state around is to get our fiscal house in order. In 2017, when the Republicans and Democrats were pretty much tied in the legislature, we were able to produce the Republican budget that I was a key member of that actually ended up passing. And then we then worked with all members of the legislature. We produced a bipartisan budget, which did not involve new tax increases, which implemented the spending cap. Also, the rainy day fund that you've been talking about, that's because of the work that we did to get that set up. So I would like to continue that work. If I'm selected to be the ranking member or the chair or the lead Republican on that committee, I'd be honored to serve in that capacity. The second one that I would want to be on is the Transportation Committee. Obviously, transportation is huge down here. Metro North, the highways, everything else, the walk bridge. And then finally, I would pick the Planning and Development Committee. That committee gets involved with relations with all the towns and cities. And I think in the next session, there's going to be a lot of talk about neighborhoods and neighborhood zoning. And for me, I would like to be in a place where I could defend Norwalk's independence, that we can control local control over our own zoning, over our own neighborhoods. In my opinion, I think we're starting to have too much overdevelopment and overbuilding. And so I wouldn't want the state to be able to come in and override that.
I'm afraid that's time. Same question on committees to Ms. Dathan.
Good evening, and thank you to the League, and thank you to my opponent, Fred, and to all the viewers at home for tuning in this evening. This is a great question, and I just wanted to talk about my background and how that would fit into my committee choices. I'm a 25-year finance executive. For the first part of my career, I became a CPA at a public accounting firm, and I progressed into an investment banking role. And then my last 15 years, I've been the CFO of startup technology companies, both in the US and abroad. I've been helping companies think long-term and strategically with budgets and business plans. And I've been able to bring this expertise to the Appropriations Committee and the Human Services Committee, which I also serve on. I am also vice chair of the Insurance and Real Estate Committee, which is another great committee because I'm very passionate about healthcare. I was very proud to get that appointment to vice chair in my first term because that usually doesn't happen. But really, my key focus has been in appropriations, and I don't just attend my 3 subcommittees for appropriations. I am deeply involved in all the subcommittees, and it's weeks and weeks of going through the budgets on a line-by-line basis. I have a strong constituent service record as a state representative, And I've been bringing my values and my priorities as a mother of school-age children to our community as a very active and engaged member. I've been working with the different people in the area during COVID and been very involved in helping with the nursing homes, other issues that have come around in terms of unemployment and really helping folks get back on their feet during COVID. So I think my help, oh, sorry about that.
We can get back to it. Mr. Wilms, do you want to extend your remarks on this? And once again, you're on mute. So that's got to unmute.
There we are. Okay.
Thank you.
Yes, I'd like to extend it into the police. You know, I've noticed that in the previous two debates, no questions were asked about the Norwalk police. And my goodness, that's like one of the most major topics that I certainly run into in the thousands of doors that I've been doing. People are asking, so what's up with, why are people going after our police? And, you know, the Norwalk police are nationally accredited. They've done a great job serving us. And, you know, the police accountability bill really, I think, unfairly treated them almost like they were not the police from Norwalk, but the police from Minneapolis. And, you know, the Norwalk police have been nationally accredited since 1995, which the Minneapolis police are not, by the way. You know, the issue of qualified immunity in particular, it really hurts. It hurts good cops, and it also stops proactive policing. And then finally, I just can't help but sort of mention the elephant in the room. I'll do that in my next section.
All right. The next question may be on police if this happens. All right, Ms. Dathan, do you want to say anything further on the first question?
Well, just to respond to my opponent here, I have supported the police and I've worked hard to pass laws to make sure that our police are well compensated. I have also sponsored laws over PTSD protections for officers and other first responders. I've also was a proud sponsor of Phil's Law, which came into effect based on a Norwalk police officer who was hurt in the line of duty. And I will have to say, you know, Fred has supported proposals that would have diverted this funding to our police officers.
All right, this is time on this rebuttal, but I'm going to go straight to a question on the police, and each of you will have 2 minutes. It will start with Ms. Dathan, and it is, what is your position on the recently enacted Connecticut Police Accountability Bill? Please be specific on what aspects you support or oppose and why, and what, if anything, you would modify.
Thank you so much. And I did vote in favor of this bill. I looked at it very closely, analyzed it with members of my party who are police officers. And I really responded to my constituents' demand for accountability, which we saw in the peaceful protest here in Norwalk. The bill enhances police training. It bans the use of chokeholds. It mandates the use of body cameras, which in many cases really helps our police and exonerates them in frivolous lawsuits. It establishes a duty to intervene and increases transparency over officer records. But it really gives the municipality to get rid of the bad actors and not let them jump from city to city. No police officer wants to work with bad cops and bad actors. And so good cops want to work with good cops. And this bill does that, just that. And it ensures that police are held accountable for wrongdoing, but they are also, you know, supported by their municipalities and their force by giving them extra support for training and use of body cameras. And I will add, in the qualified immunity is not taken away, as many people have talked about. That is a misnomer. It's rolled back to how it was in 1967. And an officer can use qualified immunity as a defense if they were acting in good faith. And if this is limited to when the officer act in a willful, wanton, or reckless manner. And that is when that defense cannot be used.
All right. Same question to Mr. Wilms.
Yes. So the police accountability bill does have a number of components that I think are good and have enjoyed bipartisan support. I mean, body cameras, chokeholds, a number of other initiatives, and widespread bipartisan support. But there were two problems with this bill. One is the process. This was rushed through in a special session this year. It should have been handled next year in the long session, which starts in January and then finishes in June. And so over the space of those 5 or 6 months, there could be a long set of hearings. Everyone could be invited to speak and testify. There could be a lot of negotiations. There really could be a sorting through to make sure that there's a strong bipartisan approach to the accountability bill. And in this case, that was never an objective, to reach a bipartisan objective. In the House, this is an area where my opponent and I are very distinct from each other. In the House, the House Republicans proposed an amendment that would have kept the current standard for qualified immunity. And that amendment failed on a tie vote. A number of Democrats joined the Republican proposal. Lucy voted no. If I had been there, I would have voted yes, and it's likely that the current standard would remain in law. So the fact is that with lowering the level of qualified immunity, she's correct that it's still there, but it's at a lower level. It does not get rid of bad cops. The way you get rid of bad cops, if you just look at the report from the Conference of U.S. Mayors, it's binding arbitration reform. What this bill does, it hurts good cops and it stops proactive policing. And this bill was driven by legislators from Bridgeport, Hartford, and New Haven. And admittedly, they have their own set of issues and problems. This bill is an answer looking for problems that do not exist in Norwalk or in much of Lower Fairfield County. And so, if I had been your legislator, I would have voted to reflect the community interest. And that's one big reason why I've been endorsed by the Norwalk Police Union.
Okay. Thank you. Any rebuttal or extension, Ms. Dathan?
Yes, please. For many of our constituents, this bill was decades in the making. It wasn't thought on a knee-jerk reaction. So I have to disagree with my opponent there. Many people have felt that they have been unfairly treated. We've seen what's happened in other departments. And even in Connecticut, in 2018, Black drivers were 3 times more likely to be searched compared to white drivers. But when the cars were actually searched, white drivers were far more likely to have illegal drugs and guns compared to Black owners.
Okay, and I'm afraid that's time on rebuttal, unfortunately. Any rebuttal or extension, Mr. Wilms?
Yes, the only other thing I would bring up, and this is a public action, so it's legitimate as far as I'm concerned, is that Lucy and some other representatives wrote a letter to Nancy on Norwalk in relation to the videos and the events at the police headquarters. And the text of that letter says that some of the police officers acted in a, quote, reprehensible manner. Well, we've all seen the videos. We've all seen what's happened. And what we haven't seen is perhaps maybe a retraction or maybe even an apology against those officers who were misaligned.
I'm afraid that's also time on this question. The next question goes to Mr. Wilms first. Connecticut Public Utility Regulatory Authority has responsibility to oversee our electric, gas, and drinking water utilities. If elected, would you support any changes to strengthen PURA's ability to hold our utilities accountable to consumers?
Well, that's a great question. I mean, we all lived through the storm that just happened, and what didn't happen was for us here, EverSource, it seemed to just disappear. I mean, people were without power. Where are the trucks? Where are the people removing the trees? Restoring the lines? There just seemed to be no communication. It was a fiasco. And this wasn't the first storm we've had. We've had plenty of other storms before. So it's really, you wonder what happened. The bill that did get passed in special session, I do like, was for the reform in relation to our utilities and PURA and moving more towards a performance-based system. I support that. And I think that legislation was very, very good. I also think that the CEO should have resigned or been fired for just, gross malfeasance. on their part. But I think the way we can ensure better results in the future is this new system that's more performance-based. Also, I think we should be having more capital expenditures go towards tree trimming and tree reduction. We're going to have storms again, and we still have trees. And so, it makes sense that we should get out there and be more proactive and put more resources into cutting back the trees, and so we minimize any future damage.
Okay, thank you. Same question to Ms. Dathan.
Thank you very much. I will say the storms that we had in August and then the subsequent outages that many of us had in August were really awful. And it was a way that I have shown my constituent service through and through. I've helped, so many of my constituents during this time that were out of electricity for, 6 or more days. It was really bad. I had medically fragile constituents who, had really was held in bad form due to this response by Eversource. So I will say I was very proud, sponsor of the Take Back the Grid Act that offered compensation and required backup generators for our customers. We also are doing more of the performance-based metrics so that Eversource really is being held accountable. But I have seen, it's not just Eversource. It is also our other utilities that we have in our area. So many of my constituents also had issues with, their telecommunications, their cable, and their internet providers. And we also need to be looking at those a little bit closer. But really, we need to make sure this is just a first step in this accountability measure. We need to look at how we are going to diversify our power, where we get our power from in the future. I am very much supportive of eliminating monopolies like Eversource so that customers have choice. We have the ability to get solar, wind, or other sources of power, and want to make sure that we make it easier for our residents to do so.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Wilms, on this PURA question, any rebuttal or extension?
Yeah, I'd like to extend it into the alternative energy sources. I'm a big supporter of solar. I'm pleased to see as we drive around town, more and more people are putting solar panels on their roofs. That seems to increase. That's great. I'm a big supporter of the wind turbine projects, certainly out in Long Island Sound. We've got to take advantage of that renewable energy. And then finally, just electric cars. When I was in the legislature, it stunned me to learn that Tesla, the leading electric car manufacturer, it was illegal for them to sell in Connecticut. I'd like to change that.
Okay, thank you. Anything further on this, Ms. Dathan?
I just want to add that, there are so many things that we can do to facilitate solar and ensure that we eliminate the current regulations and we allow net metering for our state. This will also help our residents who do use solar so that they will be able to really save money and actually sell solar back. I've supported legislation to authorize 2,000 megawatts of offshore wind.
I'm afraid that was time on the rebuttal for that question. Thank you both. Next question goes to Ms. Dathan first. Affordable health insurance is hard to guarantee, especially given battles in Washington, D.C., and the possibility that the Supreme Court might strike down the Affordable Care Act. What are your ideas to help Connecticut's residents be able to afford health care and health insurance?
That is something that I'm super passionate about, and I hear more and more every day on my doors that I talk to and constituents in our district. I was so surprised to learn that 11% of residents in the 142nd district do not have health insurance, and that was before COVID, before people lost their jobs. So I have been super supporting an option called the public option, which sits alongside of regular health insurance and private health insurance that you might have with your company. but it really is aimed for small plans or individuals who may have rolled off their company's COBRA. And it leverages the purchasing power of our existing large-scale health plans of our state. And the insurance coverage is actually paid by the insured, not the Connecticut taxpayer. And it is really important that we have more options. I found as a private company CFO, it was so expensive to get health insurance and good health care. And if we want to attract good companies to our state, one of the key ways that we can do that is to give companies more options to incentivize employees by giving them good health care. And for me, I can't say enough that when you have happy and healthy employees and happy, healthy people living in your community, then things get done and people are able to live better. We need to ensure that in this day and age, we cannot strip away healthcare coverage for pre-existing conditions. And I have been a strong advocate of making sure that those got codified into our Connecticut statutes in 2019.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Wilms, same question.
Healthcare is a really important topic, and I'm pleased to say that we in the state have taken a lot of very strong measures already in this area. For example, with the Affordable Care Act, with the exchange, many of those provisions are already built into state statute, and I actually voted for a number of them. So if something happens in the Supreme Court, we've already taken action here at the state to make sure that we're not left vulnerable. I'm also a very strong believer in pre-existing conditions. I've also supported the Medicare Savings Program that helps seniors pay for their Medicare premiums and deductibles. We were one of the few states to do that. That helps the folks that are on limited budgets. Been a big promoter of telehealth. We really need to move forward in that direction, make sure that it's also covered by insurance. I really think that's, well, I say it's the wave of the future, but it's already happening. It's already, the future's here. I like the idea of the insulin capping of insulin rates for people who suffer from diabetes. Obviously, they shouldn't be held, captive there. And then finally, what's happening a lot in the small business world. I work with small businesses in my banking job. We need to let them group together more easily. Some of them are starting to do this through their chambers of commerce. But basically, for these small businesses, they'll be able to offer their employees health coverage by pooling together with other small businesses and offering competitive plans and rates. And I'm a very big believer in allowing that to happen.
Okay, thank you. Ms. Dathan,
Yes.
Any addition?
Well, first I wanted to thank Fred for praising the bills that I've worked so hard over in my last 2 years. But I do have to disagree because on something that he did say. In 2018, he voted on LCO 4279, which allowed insurance companies to discriminate against people with pre-existing conditions and what they would cover. My feeling is Fred may tell a story that he claims that he protects those with pre-existing conditions, but this is certainly not true.
All right, Mr. Wilms, any rebuttal?
Yeah, well, Lucy, unfortunately, you got your facts wrong, and most of those Affordable Care Act provisions were built in the term before you were there. The Medicare savings plan was pre-existing, as was the telehealth, and so I'm afraid, those things pre-existed your being in the legislature.
All right. At this point, ladies and gentlemen, believe it or not, we are already at closing statements. By luck of the draw, Mr. Wilms, you'll get the first close.
Well, once again, I want to thank the League and also Lucy and all the other candidates that are here. It's certainly a privilege and an honor to once again be before the citizens of Norwalk. For 4 years, I was honored to be your state representative. And I'm looking to reclaim the seat and once again represent Norwalk. A couple of things about me that I'd like to bring forward. First is, when I served in the legislature, the question is, well, Fred, how did you decide on how to vote on a bill? And it was not what my party thought, and many oftentimes not necessarily what I thought. What the number one question that I asked myself when the bill came forward was, does this bill help Norwalk or does it hurt Norwalk? And if it helps Norwalk, it's a yes. If it hurt Norwalk, it's a no. It was only if it didn't have an effect either way, then I moved to those two other parameters. And then secondly, I served with the city for 15 years and then 4 in the state. And so in terms of how I show up in public service, I try to take a more thoughtful approach. I look to keep my word. I look to bring people together. I work with people on both sides of the aisle. One reason why I've been endorsed by the Independent Party. When I chaired the BET here in Norwalk for 8 years, 4 Republicans, 3 Democrats, we produced 8 city budgets, all approved unanimously, even during the Great Recession when things were very volatile. And then in the state legislature, I was very honored to pair up with State Representative Bruce Morris, Travis's predecessor. He and we agreed to co-sponsor a bill to reform the ECS formula to bring more ECS funds to the Norwalk schools. And before I got there, I heard, oh, you can't change that formula. There's no way you can do it. Well, Bruce and we teamed up and we testified together. We co-sponsored the bill together. And at the end of the day, there was a lot of back and forth, but those reforms got put into place. And I'm very proud of that.
Okay, thank you. And Ms. Dathan.
Thank you very much. Again, thank you to the League. I do want to talk about something that we talked about the other night and at our New Canaan debate. And I did want to highlight it again because I've had a lot of people come and talk to me about commitment. And I said the other night, when Maya Angelou told us wisely that when someone shows you who they are, believe them the first time. And we must apply this to elected officials. We need to remember this here. I commend anyone who steps forward for public service, but Mr. Wilms has already shown us that he's not been an effective legislator. He hasn't represented his constituents, but he has repeatedly told us what he's against and not what he's for. He has not brought around more funding to their schools, and he's walked away from his appointment on the Pension Sustainability Commission, which is effectively walking away from the financial challenge of the state. The other day, he said it was just too hard because he was the only Republican. My question is, what is the next issue he's not going to represent us on? In contrast, I have been working for you, my constituents in this district, and helping you through the challenges that we have faced together in the last 2 years. In my first term, I committed to building a sustainable strategic budget without raising the income tax. I have fought for the lowering of cost of healthcare. I've worked on keeping you informed during the pandemic while helping you and others in our community to ensure that we are safe and we are getting everything that we need. And lastly, I have been ensuring that our schools are well funded. I have fought hard to get more money to Norwalk schools, including the funding of the Norwalk High School and the Jefferson School. And these are all the priorities, and I hope to return to in Hartford in 2021 to continue fighting for all the things that are important to Norwalkers, including ensuring local controls over schools and zoning and modernizing our transportation system.
Okay, thank you. On behalf of the League, my thanks to both candidates in the 142nd.
Thank you.
Okay.